Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I don't know what to say exactly. It's like we're almost halfway through the season. Not quite there yet, but close to it. And um, this is what I was afraid of. If you've seen my earlier videos during the Correa fiasco, and as well as the when they signed Verlander and DeGrom going, my fear was, the Mets were going to overpay, especially with Edwin Diaz. We're going to overpay to the point where it was almost going to be a case of them sort of reminding me of what the I don't want to say what the New York Met, or what the '93 Mets were, because they're not quite there yet. Unless they go on a massive losing streak, that would be the case. But this is or 92, 93 season basically, but and 90 well more than 92 season, a little bit of that. But in any case, yeah, more than 92 season. But in any case, um, this is where I thought maybe I thought they'd probably be a little bit over 500. The fact that Bucky Showalter was with them. This is Showalter. Buck Showalter would like a well-respected manager, a well groomed tactician, um, knows what he was doing. I figured he wouldn't let this group fall to the wayside. I don't know if he's trying to get the best out of it, and this is just it, or it's a case of like injuries as well as a combination of injuries and players not listening to him because of his his sort of management style. There is cases where it can be rigid a little bit, but honestly, this is something where I think the Mets need to look this through essentially. Like, is this a season that they can recover from? I mean, quite honestly, this is a case where you've got what Francisco Lindor calls the baby Mets. Francisco Alvarez, Brett Batty, Mauricio, yeah, basically those three coming up and essentially trying to define being the future of the Mets essentially. And then you've got also the case of Miguel or Miguel, or how do you pronounce Miguel, as well as Jose Budo, and hopefully what we thought would be a case of Senga and Peterson, but that's not coming through. And the fact is we got Verlander, even though we came off a Cy Young Award winning season. It's just a case of what, he's still 40. He's no Roger Clemens. And then you got Scherzer. You could see that he's on the decline, basically. I mean, it's hard to determine what's going to happen because this is a team that I think like 3.5 games, if I remember correctly. Let me take a look. Sorry, I just need to see here. Yeah, 3 games out of the last wild card spot. And the teams that are already ahead of them are basically the Dodgers already in it, Marlins and Pirates already in the so far in it, and then you got the Giants, which is a surprise, and of course the Philadelphia Phillies ahead of the Mets, of course, and then you got the Padres just right behind the Mets by half a game. I mean, honestly, if the Mets don't pick it up, they're gonna have problems because no one's catching. They're not gonna catch the Braves unless the Braves go on a massive losing streak and they repeat what the Mets did last year, which highly is unlikely. The Dodgers, I think they're just gonna go through, and you got the Diamondbacks, which is not a surprise, but not a surprise that they're ahead of the Dodgers right now at this point. And the Marlins and Pirates, yes, I think that's a little bit of a surprise, quite honestly. The Giants, they try to make a splash. I think they might not go well. August might not fare well for them unless they move up. Phillies and Padres, they're gonna pick up steam in the summer. July and August. That's gonna be their months. They're gonna go through. The question is, can the Mets do the same thing? Can they change their attitude and start winning? Honestly, the only way the Mets come out of this is if for the month of July they have 2 or 3 losses, and the month of August no more than 5 losses. That's the only way they can actually come in and make the playoffs. But with it, I don't know if that's going to be the case. It's I know Cohen. The Mets are like the most paid team at this point, where it's the highest payroll, $370 million practically. They're almost close to busting at like $500 million. Cohen definitely is not shouldn't be satisfied with this. The question is, what does he do? Does he get rid of Epler at the end of the season? What about Buck Showalter, Alderson? I mean, Sandy pretty much built the Mets from 2011 to 2017. That same team that was there, they were somewhat competitive, specifically 14, 15, 16, of course. 17 kind of was like, unfortunately a massive drop off. Question is maybe they just rebuild. I mean, like, look at the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. I mean, the Rays are an unbelievable. They have the best record, and pretty much, like, these are all their, prospects that came up from their, from their farm system practically. Whereas the Dodgers, I mean, the Mets were trying to imitate what the Dodgers were doing, which was basically build a farm system, but also at the same time, from building the farm system, it's one of the thing is you build it, but also you sign high-profile players. The question is, could they do that? It's unknown because honestly, I don't know if they could because this is something where a team of this nature with the Mets, they were getting more of overpriced, overaged veterans, to be honest. And that's what it felt like, honestly. That's what it felt like to me, that they were getting overpriced veterans. This has definitely been a disappointing season so far, to say the the least. Can they salvage it? I think they can. It's possible they can. I'm a hopeful. I'm a diehard hopeful. Especially in the 2019 2019 era where you had basically Pete Alonso coming in and like helping him out at that time basically, and like they made that slight run for the wild card spot. Of course they fell short. Same thing in the 2021 type of season as well too in a ways. Losing DeGrom, I think honestly it was a mistake. But at the same time, 2020 in hindsight, now the guy's out for the entire season. But you know what? That was going to happen no matter what. The real question is they didn't really replace their bullpen, specifically Diaz. After Diaz went down, they didn't really rush out and try to get anyone. And they didn't really try to solidify their starting five. Carrasco, Quintero, Senga, no one knew. But honestly, looking at it now, we were hoping he was going to be a middle of the rotation. Turns out he's the back end of the rotation more than anything else. And you're hoping Verlander and Scherzer, they would be the 1-2 punch that you would have, like similar to what it was when they were in Detroit, similar to what it was with Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, but it's not the case here. They're not the Curt Schilling or Randy Johnson of old. It'd be great if that was the case, but that's not the case. In this situation, the Mets need two top superstar pitchers. And the thing is, you're not going to get it out there and buying out people. Honestly, I think what they got to do is they're going to have to rebuild. They're going to literally have to rebuild. But the way to rebuild first is not through the talent first. Rebuild their whole scouting department. They got to rebuild their whole scouting department. I hate to say this. They got to do things differently. And when everyone's, you got to, infielders, those hitters, actual hitters. You know what? That still works off in Moneyball a little bit. Moneyball can work off. You could still buy off runs no matter what. And you got the money to buy off the runs anyways. Lindor is helping out. Lonzo's helping out. It's just a matter of, like, their defense just sucks. And that's because of their pitching. If their pitchers give up, like, 12 runs, you got to have 13 runs come produced from your team. And that's highly unlikely. The thing is, if you can keep it to 1-0, 2-0 games, then you should be able to come back at that point. Think about it. So, like, everyone's pointing, the Oakland A's Moneyball. But let's not forget, sometimes they were kept in it because of the fact of their pitching. They had the three best pitchers at that time. You had Mulder, Hudson, and Zito. I mean, honestly, without those three, would the Oakland A's be where they're at? I don't think so. And think about it this way. No one's copying what the Braves of the 90s did, basically. You had Maddox, you had Glavine, you had Smoltz. Those three kept them in the playoffs every year consistent, and they went to the World Series every now and then. The only difference is they didn't have the hitters. In this situation, I think if they could build that pitching staff over again, what the Mets did in 2015 and 2016 and 2014 with back then, which was Matt Harvey, Jacob deGrom, and Syndergaard, as well as Wheeler, those four pretty much brought the Mets to the World Series in 2015. It was their pitching. Think about it. It wasn't their hitting. Their hitting did not lead them there. It was their pitching. And everyone doesn't remember that because the thing is like it proved Kansas City exploited something where like they had no defense behind them at that point. And they just all they had to do was slap some hits in the in the infield. They had no fielding. They had no outfielding basically. Cespedes, all they had to do was like shut out Cespedes, and the Mets offense went silent. And that's what it was. That's all they had to do. And that's what and that's the thing. You build out the pitching. Get the pitching, you could buy your runs at that point. You could practically buy your runs. All you got to do is learn how to use those runs. I think, and the other factor is, I don't know if the Mets adjusted really well because the fact is like all these rule changes, the speed clock, the pitching clock, as well as increasing the size of the bag. That's why you're seeing more steals. And also the other aspect is as well too, like no more, shifts in the field. You can't shift those fielders now unless whatever. And also the other aspect, pickoff moves. You can only pick off a pitch, a runner on first base twice. After that, that's pretty much a balk then. So I see what what MLB was trying to do, but the thing is like I think that was a mistake. Because sometimes you need those pitchers. It becomes an offensive game at that point. And if it's an offensive game, then you might as well just like forget about pitching. You might as well just put a freaking what's that called pitching machine out there, and that's pretty much it. Just leave a pitching machine and go forward with that basically. Because honestly, I think that's all you need at that point. Because if that's what the MLB is looking for, is just for hitters, you might as well just put a pitching machine or like have one of those like back in the day Pee Wee leagues, the T-ball. Let's see what happens at that point. Honestly, this is why I miss pitchers. This is why I loved the 80s at that point, as well as parts of the 90s, because you had serious pitching. You had pitchers. They knew what to do. If they could do this here in this situation, it would be great, but we'll have to wait and see, honestly. But with that, I think I'll admit I'll be upfront and straight up in front with this. Is basically I haven't been watching the Mets game entirely because I've been engulfed in MLS a little bit, not a little bit of MLS, but mostly the NBA when the Knicks were in it as well. And I was like, yes, but until they were lost. But then like watching the Miami Heat beat out Boston was like really impressive. And then of course Formula One as well was another big factor. So I think another week or so, I'll probably immerse myself into baseball. Because the thing is, if I immerse myself into this, with the Mets, I think I would have been much more depressed, a little bit more depressed. Because after the Knicks lost, you could see that I was like not too happy. I was angry. With the Mets, I think I was going to be the case. I thought for sure in the beginning, if you saw some of my earlier videos as well too, when the season began, I was like a little afraid. I was like, all right, this might be a case. I'm hoping I was wrong. It seems like I was almost dead on. The only way I'm still hopeful. I'm still optimistic about the Mets. I'm still optimistic to the point like I think they can pull off a couple of runs here and there. If they can go on a 20-0 run somewhere along the ways, maybe another 13-0 run somewhere else along the ways as well, to another 10-0 run. I don't know. Then maybe they'll definitely make the wild card playoffs at that point. But in this case, I think the question is, right now the Mets need to have to at the rate this is going, the Mets are projected to win about 82, 83 games, just 500 or just above 500. And in this situation, the way it is, you have to win 90 games just to make the playoffs. It looks like just to make the wild cards. You have to win 90 games. It looks like. If you don't, it's going to be kind of hard and tough to do at that point. So, again, the Mets have to win 60 games, at least 60 games to win to get in, to be in the playoffs for sure. Can they win 20 games in a row like the A's did? On wood, but I doubt it. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think the Mets can make the playoffs? Do you think I'm just overreacting? Or is this a season that the Mets just won't be able to recover? Should the Mets get rid of Epler? Should the Mets get rid of Buck Showalter? Should the Mets, basically rebuild their entire scouting department? And also, does Sandy Alderson stay, or should they let Sandy Alderson go at that point as well too? And with the rest of the team, like, do they gut it and just like rebuild from scratch? Nope, they can rebuild from the draft as well as from trades. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Of course, I do read my comments. I do read them all when I get notified about it, and I do respond to them when they warrant a response. But with that, if you do enjoy my videos, do enjoy my content, do enjoy my channel, I ask that you subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you don't hate my if you don't like my videos, hate my channel, but still watch my videos and wanna get into discussion about baseball in general with the Mets specifically, or with the Mets versus I don't know whomever it is that you want to talk about, I'll gladly talk about that as well too. But again, I ask also you subscribe if you haven't subscribed. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course unrehearsed. Until next time.